I remember the exact moment the shift happened, because it wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a quiet Friday night in our house in Charlotte, the kind of night where I usually tried to make everything look a little nicer than we could actually afford. I'd just finished cleaning up after dinner with Cole's parents. His mom, Patricia, had made her usual comments about how cute my design work was, like I was a kid making bracelets at summer camp instead of an adult paying half the bills. His dad barely spoke, which honestly was a blessing, because when he did, it was usually to agree with her. Cole didn't defend me. He never did. I used to tell myself he was just keeping the peace, but deep down, I knew he liked the attention of being the golden son in front of his parents. So after cleaning the kitchen, spotless because God forbid Patricia saw a crumb, I sat down on the couch, exhausted. Cole didn't sit. He stood with his arms crossed like he was about to deliver a company memo. "Joanna," he said, in that tone he uses when he wants to sound calm but really just wants control. "This needs to change. You've lived off me long enough." I thought he was joking. I even laughed a little, the kind of laugh that pops out when you're too tired to react properly. But he kept going. "Starting next month, we're splitting finances. Completely. Your spending is out of control, and I'm done carrying everything." The first thing that hit me wasn't anger. It was confusion so sharp it felt physical. Lived off him? I was the one who worked late into the night finishing design orders. I managed every bill, cooked every meal, and kept the house from falling apart. Most importantly, 80% of the down payment for this house came from my dad's inheritance. I didn't live off him. If anything, he'd been living a little more comfortably because of me. Cole watched my face like he expected the usual response, apologizing, explaining, promising to be better. He'd gotten used to that version of me. But something in me clicked so fast it felt like someone flipped a switch. "All right," I said. Just that. Calm, simple, no argument. He blinked. "All right?" "Sure," I said. "If you want separate finances, we'll do separate finances." And routine. I could practically see the confusion crawl across his face. He'd prepared for a fight, not agreement. He'd walked into this moment ready to win something, but I wasn't playing that game anymore. He tried again. "Joanna, this isn't optional." I said, "All right, Cole." He didn't know what to do with that. He stood there in silence, jaw tight, pretending he still had control when it was leaking out of him like air from a cheap balloon. He eventually walked upstairs without another word, leaving me alone in the living room. That's when everything settled for me. Not fear, not anger. Clarity. If he wanted a financial split, he'd get a financial split. But not the kind he thought. Cole imagined himself as the sole provider carrying a dead weight. He genuinely believed that. And honestly, that belief said everything I needed to know about how he saw me. I sat with my tablet and opened a blank spreadsheet. I started listing every task I handled in our house. Meal planning, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, laundry, scheduling repairs, managing bills, yard work, hosting his parents every other Sunday like it was a full-time job. Then I looked up the cost of hiring people for each task in Charlotte, real numbers, not guesses. Housekeeper, private chef, household manager, personal assistant, event coordinator. The total wasn't small. Then I opened another sheet. I titled it Home Ownership Breakdown. I entered the numbers from my inheritance, the amount transferred directly into escrow, the bank statements showing exactly where the money came from, all documented, all traceable. Cole wanted clarity. He was about to get it. But this wasn't revenge yet. Not fully. This was step one, reality. I needed the truth in front of me, as much as I needed it in front of him. Upstairs, I heard the shower turn on. He always showered after his parents visited, like my cooking or my presence somehow contaminated him. Or maybe the guilt did. Maybe the perfume I kept smelling on his shirts wasn't from the air in his office. That thought didn't hurt as much as I expected. It just settled, like another puzzle piece sliding into place. And this is where I pause the story for a second, because I'm curious what you would have done in my place. Would you have confronted him right there? Stayed quiet like I did? Or walked out and left him with the dishes he never touched? Tell me in the comments really. I read them. If you're new here and you like stories about cheating, revenge, and husbands who think they're smarter than they are, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Cole came downstairs again, right as I finished the spreadsheets. He didn't notice what I was doing. He never paid attention to anything I worked on unless he wanted to insult it. Instead, he grabbed a beer, opened it, and didn't offer me one. Classic Cole. He sat beside me like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just insulted my life, my work, and my contribution to our home. He kicked his feet up and scrolled his phone while I quietly built the blueprint of the moment he would truly understand the price of what he'd said. There was nothing dramatic in the room. No shouting, no tears, no thrown plates. Just the sound of Cole's beer clicking against the table and the smooth swipe of my finger on my tablet as I worked out the numbers of a life he'd been benefiting from far more than he realized. He had no idea that the plan forming in my head would unfold faster than he could ever prepare for, and it all began with that one sentence, "You've lived off me enough." Oh. The cold click of Cole's beer hitting the table still hung in the room when I woke up early the next morning. The kind of early that happens when your mind refuses to let you sleep. I moved quietly through the house, the same house I paid for, and noticed something I hadn't processed the night before. His jacket wasn't where he usually tossed it. It was neatly hung. Cole never hung anything neatly. Ever. I pulled it from the hook, and the scent hit instantly. Not soap, not detergent. A perfume I didn't own, and had never worn. Light, floral, obviously expensive. The kind of scent that didn't come from a hug or a handshake. The kind that stayed because someone had been close. The thought didn't hit me like a stab. It landed like a fact. Clean, sharp, matter of fact. I'd suspected something for weeks, maybe months. But touching the jacket made it real in a way words couldn't. Cole's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The timing, the tone changes, the late nights, the sudden shower when he got home, the way he shielded his phone like it contained nuclear codes, it all lined up. I'd been married long enough to know when someone's routine shifts for the wrong reasons. When he finally came down, half asleep, he didn't even notice me. He walked straight to the fridge, grabbed a yogurt he never ate, and tossed it back like a shot. Then he spotted the jacket in my hand. "Why are you holding that?" he asked. "It smelled like something," I said. He paused, barely a second, then shrugged. "Probably one of my coworkers hugged me. Calm down." I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused him. But he defaulted to defensiveness anyway. Another sign. He walked away, muttering something under his breath about people being paranoid. I didn't follow. I didn't confront. I took the jacket, zipped it into a laundry bag, and put it in the guest room closet for later. Not to hide it, just to keep it untouched. While he showered, I sat with my tablet again and logged into our home's smart system. I wasn't snooping. I was checking something I paid for. The doorbell camera had motion alerts every time someone approached our house. Most days it was packages or neighborhood dogs setting it off. But last Thursday, when I was working late at a cafe, there was a clip. Cole unlocking the door for someone who wasn't me. A woman. I couldn't see her face, just her hair and the way she moved quickly, like she'd been there before. He told me he worked late that night. I didn't feel my heartbeat spike or my stomach drop. My body didn't react the way I thought it would. It felt like flipping a page and seeing a sentence you already knew was there. I tapped to save the clip. Not to threaten anybody. Not yet. I saved it because truth, once collected, becomes a tool. Cole came out of the shower, smelling like the body wash he always used to cover things up. He looked at me for a beat too long, checking my face to see what I knew. He didn't ask if anything was wrong. He never did. He just grabbed his keys and left early, pretending it was for work, even though he never went in before 9. The house felt different once he was gone. Not quieter, just honest. I could see everything clearly without needing to force explanations that made him look better than he deserved. I walked past the living room and noticed another detail I'd missed. 2 wine glasses in the sink. I don't drink wine on weekdays, especially not red. The glasses hadn't been washed. Cole never washed anything, so whoever visited Thursday night didn't run the water either. I rinsed them out without emotion, set them on the drying rack, and kept moving. I wasn't collecting these moments to torture myself. I was building a timeline, a pattern, evidence, not for court, not yet, for clarity. Clarity is a dangerous thing for a man who relies on confusion to stay in control. Later that afternoon, I had a design meeting online with a client. While waiting for her to join, I scrolled through our joint credit card. I wasn't looking for transactions, just making sure bills were paid. But sitting right there, in between gas and groceries, was a charge for a boutique hotel downtown, $96. Too low for a full night, too high to just grab a drink. I clicked to see the timestamp. The same night as the door camera clip. I took a screenshot. Not to use against him, not yet. To remind myself I wasn't imagining things. When Cole finally returned home that evening, he tried too hard to act normal. He cracked jokes that didn't land, asked me if I wanted to watch something together, even offered to cook, which he never did and definitely had no ability to do. It was the kind of guilt performance men do when they're hoping you stay clueless without them having to lie outright. I didn't play along. I didn't accuse him, cry, or lash out. I simply let his words bounce off the wall between us that he built himself. He glanced at me more times than usual, like he was waiting for the complaint, the meltdown, the emotional reaction that would make him feel justified for hiding things. But I didn't give it to him. There's a special kind of silence that scares a man who's been getting away with things. Not fury, not tears. Silence. Calm, focused, steady silence. That night, when he fell asleep with his phone shoved under the pillow, as if I'd ever bothered to touch it, I sat at my desk and organized everything. Timestamps, screenshots, comparisons, notes. Not a dramatic detective board, just a clean log. I didn't plan revenge in that moment. Revenge wasn't even the right word. I planned truth. And truth, when stacked properly, becomes the kind of structure a liar can't climb out of. If you've ever been in a moment where your instincts whispered louder than the excuses you made for someone, tell me in the comments. People pretend intuition is dramatic, but sometimes it's just noticing what's right in front of you. And if you're watching this and want more stories about betrayal, cheating, and the kind of revenge that doesn't need yelling to hit hard, subscribe so you don't miss any of this. Cole slept like a man who believed his secrets were safe. I stayed awake like a woman who finally understood the power of paying attention. The glow of my tablet was still on my desk when the sun started coming through the blinds, and the quiet of the house felt almost cooperative, like it knew what I was about to do. I wasn't tired. My mind was too sharp for that, too focused, too clear. I opened a new spreadsheet and started with the simplest column name I could think of, what I actually do here. I typed one line, then another, and another. Meal planning, cleaning, grocery runs, every bill, yard scheduling, repairs, hosting his parents, keeping track of insurance paperwork, making sure the water heater didn't explode again because Cole never checked anything. Real tasks, not imaginary ones. Tasks that kept the house functioning while he walked around, acting like his paycheck powered the Sunday. I added a column for market rates in Charlotte. Housekeeper hourly rate. Private chef cost per meal. Household manager salary. Personal assistant tasks. Event prep services. None of the numbers were exaggerated. I didn't need to inflate them. Reality did the work for me. Then I added a third column, what those costs would total each month. When the spreadsheet auto-summed, it hit me how much labor I'd been giving for free. Not as a wife. As a worker he didn't respect. It didn't make me angry. It made me steady. I pulled up another file, the home purchase documents. I had them saved because I'm the one who handles all the paperwork. Cole can barely keep track of his W-2 seconds. I scanned until I found the transfer from my dad's inheritance account, exactly 80% of the down payment hitting escrow, black and white proof of who actually funded the roof over our heads. Cole's words from last night, "You've lived off me enough," echoed again, but not painfully. More like a punchline to the joke he didn't know he was telling. My next step wasn't dramatic. I reorganized the documents so they were clean, sorted, easy to open. A simple folder labeled Full Financial Breakdown. Something about seeing it arranged like that made everything click into place. This wasn't about catching him in a lie. This was about resetting the balance that had been tilted against me for years. By mid-morning, the house was awake with the usual sounds of Cole moving around. Footsteps, drawers opening, the bathroom sink running. A throat clear that always meant he was about to yell down to ask where something was. "Joanna?" he called out. I kept typing. "Do you know where my blue shirt is?" I typed another line. The man who thought I was living off him needed me to help him locate a shirt in a 3-bedroom house. The irony didn't even require commentary. He came downstairs wearing some wrinkled backup shirt and gave me a look that suggested his missing wardrobe item was somehow my fault. I didn't apologize. He didn't know what to do with that. He just grabbed his keys and left for work, like he always did, except this time, he glanced at me twice before closing the door, as if expecting me to chase after him with an apology that wasn't coming. The house fell silent again, and it felt like permission. I opened the Notes app next and wrote a list titled, "What Will Change Now?" Not in a dramatic self-help way, but in a plain, functional way. If Cole wanted separate finances, then separate finances meant boundaries. No cooking. No cleaning for him. No errands on his behalf. No Sunday lunches prepared for his parents. No invisible services. No emotional cushioning when he messed up and needed someone else to absorb the impact. Séparate means séparate. Around noon, I made myself lunch just for me. Salmon, avocado, the things he always said were too expensive, but somehow ate whenever I bought them. When I put the leftovers in the fridge, I grabbed a roll of labels from the drawer and wrote on one, "Property of Joanna Mercer." I stuck it on the container and stood there for a moment, looking at that small rectangle of paper, like it was a declaration filed at a courthouse. Then I labeled my yogurt, my coffee, my fruit, not out of pettiness, out of clarity. A boundary is only real if it's visible. Cole came home earlier than usual that evening. He stepped inside carefully, scanning the house like he expected something to be wrong. When he didn't see dinner on the stove, his eyebrows lifted. "Did you not cook tonight?" he asked. "No," I said, "not part of my responsibilities anymore." He opened his mouth like he had something to say, then shut it again. He warmed leftover pizza his own and sat across from me while I ate a fresh bowl of quinoa salad. He stared at my labeled container when I got up to put it away, but he didn't comment. He wasn't sure if this was a fight or a test. It was neither. He was learning what separation really looks like. Later, he tried for a casual tone. "You seem different today." "I'm fine," I said. I wasn't being cold. I was being accurate. He watched me like he was trying to translate a language he'd never realized I spoke. When he slipped into bed that night, he gave a sigh heavy enough to announce how hard his day was, another one of his favorite habits. I lay next to him and listened to him breathe, and I realized something important. The distance between us didn't scare me. It felt like room space I could finally use. If you've ever reached a moment where the switch flipped and everything lined up clearly, tell me in the comments. It's shocking how fast clarity can show up when someone underestimates you long enough. And if you want more stories about how betrayal unfolds in everyday details, subscribe so you don't miss out. Cole fell asleep quickly, like he always did, confident the world would fix itself around him. I stayed awake a little longer, organizing my spreadsheets, checking receipts, and labeling the next container for the fridge. The house was quiet, but not empty. It was filling with the structure of a plan that didn't need noise to be powerful. The sound of Cole pacing upstairs drifted through the ceiling while I made my coffee the next morning. He never paced. He usually slept in on Saturdays, but apparently the new version of me, quiet, calm, and no longer orbiting around his needs, had his nerves doing laps before he even brushed his teeth. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the silence settle exactly where it belonged. He came down wearing sweatpants, and that shirt he always used when he wanted to look relaxed but in control. He stopped at the foot of the stairs with a confused expression, like he expected to smell breakfast or see me rushing around prepping for something. "You're not cooking?" he asked. "No," I said, scrolling through a design mock-up on my tablet. "It's Saturday." "It's always Saturday," he muttered. I didn't respond. There was nothing to respond to. He wandered around the kitchen like a man searching for proof he was still the center of the universe. Then he leaned over my shoulder without asking, pretending to look at the tablet. "So you've got time for your little drawings today," he said. He wanted a reaction. He always wanted one. It made him feel like he had impact. "Looks like it," I answered. His mouth twitched, annoyed that I didn't take the bait. He walked away, but not before tossing out, "Must be nice having so much free time." I mentally added another line to the invoice he'd eventually get to admire. Emotional labor surcharge. Ongoing. I stayed focused on my work while he hovered. He wasn't used to being ignored in his own home well, in the home he pretended was his. He opened and closed cabinets, checked the pantry, rearranged things that didn't need rearranging, all subtle ways to get attention. When that didn't work, he tried a different angle. "You're not going grocery shopping?" he asked. "No," I said again. "I bought what I needed yesterday." "What about what I need?" "You should get it." He blinked at me like I'd spoken ancient Greek. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means what it sounds like," I said, tapping my screen. "Separate budgets, separate responsibilities. That's what you wanted." He stared at me, stunned. He had insisted on splitting finances, but he hadn't calculated what that would look like in real life. He clearly expected me to handle all the labor while he handled the speeches. The next hour passed with him moving around the house like a ghost, unsure if it was haunting someone or being haunted. He left eventually, slamming the door a little harder than necessary, and I enjoyed the quiet he accidentally gifted me. When I went out later to run a few errands, I bought only what I wanted: my favorite yogurt, the coffee I liked, the fruit he always ate when I bought it, but never bought himself. Every item I put in my cart was annoyingly satisfying. Back home, I unpacked the groceries and labeled each item neatly, "Property of Joanna Mercer," before placing them in the fridge. Seeing all those little labels lined up felt like the first breath of free air in months. While I worked on a client project that afternoon, Cole returned. I heard the front door, heard the sigh he always let out when he expected me to greet him. I didn't move. He stepped into the kitchen and stopped cold when he saw the fridge. "What is all this?" he said, opening the door and staring at the labels. "You said separate finances," I said. "So that's mine." He touched one of the containers like it offended him. "You labeled food?" "Yes," I said. "It helps keep budgets clear." "Now." He closed the fridge too hard, then leaned on the counter with that strained smile he used when he thought someone wasn't respecting him properly. "You're being ridiculous." "Maybe," I said. "But it's exactly what you asked for." He didn't have a response to that. Instead, he grabbed a bag of chips from the pantry and crunched them angrily, one of his classic moves. Somehow he believed chewing loudly counted as dominance. He wandered around for a while before giving up and heading to his office. He slammed that door too. I added another line to the mental invoice. As evening settled in, I ordered takeout for myself. Good takeout, the kind I used to avoid because Cole always said it was a waste. When the food arrived, I set my bowl on the patio table and ate peacefully while scrolling through my saved camera clips. Not obsessively, just logically. The clip of the woman entering the house played again, and this time I noticed something small but important. Cole didn't hesitate when he unlocked the door for her. He typed the code smoothly, like he'd done it in front of her before. Inside, I heard him walking around, probably expecting me to cook or ask about dinner. When none of that happened, he came out to the patio. "You didn't make anything?" he asked. "I ordered for myself," I said. "You didn't order for me?" "No." "Muh." He stared uncomfortable. "You usually do." "I usually did a lot of things." The look he gave me wasn't anger. It was something closer to confusion mixed with fear, like he could feel the ground shifting under him but couldn't figure out where the movement was coming from. He went back inside without another word, and the silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was honest, and honesty is something he'd never been very good at handling. When I finished eating, I placed the leftover container in the fridge, labeled it, and wiped the counter clean. The night settled around the house, not heavy or tense, just clear, organized, rearranged. Every small shift I made was adding structure, adding definition, and Cole, for the first time in a long time, wasn't the one setting the tone. He moved through the rooms like someone uncertain of his place, and the space between us wasn't empty. It was intentional. The smell of the coffee I brewed early Sunday morning filled the kitchen, and the quiet around me felt steady, almost pleasant. I sat on the patio with my mug, legs curled under me, scrolling through a client's email while the sun warmed the railing. There was no rush, no prepping, no chopping, no marinating meat for people who never thanked me. Just peace, exactly the way a Sunday should feel. Cole came downstairs a little after 9, rubbing his eyes and yawning like a man waking up in a life he didn't recognize. The moment he saw the empty kitchen, no pans, no ingredients, not even a cutting board, his posture stiffened. "You're not starting lunch?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "No," I said, adjusting the brightness on my tablet. He blinked. "My parents are coming at 1. I nodded. "I remember." He waited, staring at me like I had forgotten the meaning of words. When I didn't move or apologize, he stepped closer. "You always start early," he said. "Sunday lunches," I said, "are part of household management. Since we're splitting finances, that means they're billable." The silence that hit him wasn't loud, but it hit him hard. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, then finally produced a weak, "You're joking." "I'm not." He ran a hand through his hair, the same move he used when he got a traffic ticket or misplaced something important. He paced for a few seconds, then reached for his phone. "You're seriously not making lunch?" he asked. One more attempt at the reality check he desperately wanted. "Correct." He stared at me, the panic now visible. Patricia didn't handle surprises well. She handled inconvenience even worse. And he knew it. He knew it better than anyone. He dialed her number, turning away slightly. Lowering his voice like that would hide the edge of fear. "Hey Mom," he said. Yeah, everything's fine." "Of course she's preparing something. It's a surprise today." "No, I'm not telling you what she made." "Mom, relax. Yes, it'll be ready." His attempt at confidence cracked in the middle of the sentence. He hung up and looked at me like I was the only firefighter in a burning building. "You need to get started," he said. "No," I replied. "Joanna, please," he said, softer now, almost polite. "It's a paid service, Cole," I said. "If you'd like to hire me, we can discuss the rate." "Huh?" He stood frozen in the doorway, jaw tight. He'd wanted separate finances because he thought it would give him more control, not less. Now he was realizing the truth. He'd never calculated what I actually did. His version of marriage had always been him giving orders and me filling the gaps. But I wasn't filling anything today. He left the kitchen again, this time faster, pacing from room to room like the house itself should give him a solution. I stayed outside, reading my emails, finishing my coffee, aware of every fast footstep behind me. By noon, he had tried everything short of begging. Slamming cabinets, slamming drawers, making loud sighs meant to get my attention. Commenting about how people were expecting food. Opening the fridge and muttering about labels like they personally offended him. I let all of it pass straight through the air. Eventually, he planted himself in the kitchen island stool, tapping his fingers on the quartz countertop, the one I'd paid for. He forced out a laugh. "They're going to freak out," he said, pretending it was funny. "They usually do," I said. He didn't laugh again. At 12:50, he jumped up like he'd been electrocuted. He smoothed his shirt, checked his hair in the stainless steel microwave reflection, straightened up like an actor about to enter a scene. "They're here early sometimes," he muttered. "Good luck," I said, sipping water. At exactly 12:58, a car door slammed outside. Cole visibly flinched. He walked to the entrance, trying to pull confidence over himself like a jacket that didn't fit anymore. When the doorbell rang, he nearly jumped. He opened the door with a smile so forced it almost cracked his face. "Mom, Dad," he said, voice pitched higher than normal. "So good to see you." "No." Patricia breezed in like she owned the place, wearing her usual 2-white suit and carrying a tote bag with enough judgment to fill the house. Howard followed calmly behind her, eyes already observing the tension in the air. Before Cole could distract her with idle small talk, she sniffed. "It doesn't smell like anything," she said. Cole laughed too loudly. "We're doing something different today." She gave him a look that said she wasn't buying a single word from his mouth. She set her purse on the couch, another thing she always did, like testing territory, and immediately headed toward the kitchen. Cole darted forward. "Mom, wait." "Cole, don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "She probably needs help." He tried to stop her again, but Patricia shook his hand off like he was a child tugging at her sleeve. The click of her heels crossing the floor was unmistakably sharp. I watched her from the patio through the glass door, her posture stiff and confident, already preparing the criticism she assumed she'd deliver. She entered the kitchen. The silence lasted half a second. Then came the scream. Not a yelp, not a gasp. A full-volume, throat-shredding shriek that ricocheted through the entire house. Loud enough that I saw the neighbors across the street turn their heads toward our windows. Cole sprinted into the kitchen. Howard followed quickly. And Patricia stood frozen, one hand gripping the refrigerator door, eyes widened at something only she could see. I set my glass down and walked toward the door, the sound of her scream still vibrating in the air, and Cole's face tight with shock. The sight of Patricia frozen in front of the refrigerator made the air feel heavier than the silence that followed her scream. Her hand was still clutching the fridge door like she needed it to stay upright. Cole looked between her and me with the panic of a man who realized he'd lost control of a situation he thought he owned. Howard stood behind them both, eyebrows lifted just slightly, taking in every detail without saying a word. I stepped into the kitchen, calm and steady, the way someone feels when they know exactly what's about to happen. Patricia jabbed a finger toward the open fridge, her voice cracking. "What is this?" The shelves were organized with labels so clear a child could understand them. Property of Joanna Mercer, neatly printed on every item I bought. And right in the center front, and easy to notice, was the takeout container from Friday night. Except that wasn't what made her scream. It was the name scrawled across the takeout lid in bold marker. Sienna. Not my name, not my handwriting, not anything a married man should have in his fridge when his wife didn't order takeout and didn't eat that cuisine. Patricia pointed again, this time more aggressively. "Who is Sienna?" Cole's mouth opened, but only a broken sound came out. He didn't even look at me, he looked at his mother, like she was the judge and jury he needed to impress. "That's not Mom. That's not what you think." "Oh?" she snapped. "It looks exactly like what I think." "Huh." I stayed beside the island, hands resting lightly on the cool surface. Cole kept desperately motioning toward the container, like he could wave it out of existence. It's just someone from work," he stammered. Patricia laughed a cold, sharp laugh that somehow cut deeper than the scream. "Someone from work writes her name on your food and eats in your kitchen? And you leave it here where your wife can find it?" Cole blinked rapidly. "No, she didn't eat here. I must have put the wrong container back." "Oh, so now you meal prep with another woman?" she fired back. Howard cleared his throat. Quiet, but loud enough to break the moment. "Patricia," he said, "let them handle it." "No," she barked. "I will not calm down. Not when my son is sneaking around like some college boy who can't keep his zipper up." Cole turned bright red, humiliated in a way he never expected to be in his own kitchen. For once, Patricia wasn't on his side. She wasn't sugarcoating anything. She wasn't blaming me. She was staring at her son like he was a stranger. "I can't believe this," she said, hands shaking now. "You've embarrassed me. You've embarrassed this family. And for what? Some woman named Sienna?" Cole tried again to speak, but Patricia steamrolled right over him. "You made Joanna cook for us every other Sunday. You made her host us. And this is how you repay her? By letting another woman waltz into this house like she has a key?" The word key landed with a thud. Howard was watching Cole carefully now. "Does she have a key, son?" Cole's silence answered the question faster than words could. I didn't need to say anything. I didn't need to defend myself. The scene was unfolding without my input, like the truth had simply been waiting for the right audience. Patricia stepped closer to Cole. "You told us Joanna was overspending. You told us you were carrying her financially. You told us she wasn't pulling her weight. And meanwhile," she pointed at the fridge again, "she's labeling her own food because you wanted separate finances?" Cole flinched. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did," she snapped. "You absolutely meant it. But you didn't think it through. You never do." I watched Patricia, almost fascinated. She had spent years nitpicking everything I did, my cooking, my hosting, my clothes, my work. But right now, she was ripping into Cole like she'd been storing this energy for years. "I raised you better than this," she said. "Or at least I thought I did." Cole threw his hands up. Can everyone just calm down? Patricia stared at him like he'd just insulted the entire state of North Carolina. Calm down? Calm down? You humiliated your wife, told her she lived off you, and now I find another woman's takeout in your refrigerator? It's not what it looks like, he said, voice cracking. Patricia leaned in close, eyes cold. Then what is it? Explain it to me. Explain it to your wife. He looked at me like he was hoping I'd rescue him. I didn't move. Joanna, he said. You know it's not. No, I said quietly. I don't know anything except what I see. Arling. The room tightened around that sentence. Patricia took a breath, like she was preparing for another round, but Howard gently touched her arm. She pulled away from him, then looked at me with something I'd never seen on her face before. Regret. I'm sorry you had to see this, she said. Her voice didn't soften, but it was real. Cole stepped back like the floor under him had shifted. Mom, don't apologize to her like I'm... Like you're what? She shot back. Innocent? He shut his mouth fast. Patricia shook her head, disgusted. Honestly, I'm ashamed. Absolutely ashamed. She marched past us, grabbed her purse, then turned on him again. Get your act together, or don't. But don't drag Joanna down with you. Howard followed her slowly, giving Cole one final look, disappointed, measured, almost tired. I stood still, the refrigerator door still open, the air conditioning blowing cool air out like nothing unusual had happened. Cole stared at me once his parents were gone, his face pale and desperate. Joanna, I can explain. I gently pushed the fridge door shut, the soft click echoing through the kitchen. The house settled around us, not tense but honest, and the silence between us wasn't a pause. It was truth finding its place. Cole stood there, rubbing the back of his neck, eyes darting anywhere but toward the fridge. I didn't move. The kitchen felt balanced on a thin edge, like one wrong word could snap the room in half. The sunlight through the window caught the marble island, and for a second, the whole place looked like a stage. And Cole? He looked like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. He tried again. Joanna, listen, you're blowing this out of proportion. I leaned one hip against the counter, calm and steady, because nothing rattles a guilty man faster than someone who isn't rattled back. What exactly am I blowing out of proportion? The labeled food? The woman's name? Or you telling your mother I live off you while I paid for most of this house? He blinked like I'd slapped him with a spreadsheet. This isn't the time to. It's exactly the time, I said. You wanted separate finances, remember? Transparency, accountability, your words. His jaw clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grind. I said that because you were always acting like money didn't matter. 9. No, I replied. Money mattered to you. Enough that you weaponized it the moment you thought you had the upper hand. His face twitched. That's not fair. I pushed myself off the counter and walked to the dining table, picking up the tablet I'd left there. It glowed softly, the same spreadsheet open from last night. I tapped the screen, and the invoice displayed in clean, bold letters. Cole's shoulders tensed. Oh, come on. You're not actually going through with that. I already did. Me? I turned the screen toward him. He didn't step closer. He leaned back instead, like the numbers might reach out and grab him. Meal planning, grocery shopping, prep, cooking, cleanup, household management, emotional labor. I read out loud, my tone steady. Total due, $460. He scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're ridiculous. Maybe, I said, but I'm also done being treated like an unpaid maid. He stepped forward then, anger giving him just enough courage to move. You're trying to humiliate me. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. His face shifted the way a person's does when they realize the ground under their feet isn't solid. I didn't cheat, he blurted. The way guilty men always start when they don't know which lie to defend first. I never said you did, I replied. But your mother asked an excellent question. He swallowed hard. Look, that food Sienna, she's just someone from the office. You keep saying that like it sounds better each time. It's the truth. Does she have a key to this house? He froze, completely. Not a muscle moved. That's not what, it's not. I tilted my head. That wasn't even the question I wanted to ask, but thank you for answering it. His cheeks burned red. You're twisting everything. No, I said. I'm listening. Oh, he paced a small circle, hands gripping his hair like he could pull a better explanation out of his scalp. She doesn't mean anything. She's a coworker. We had a late night at the office, and she ended up eating in my kitchen? It's not like that. Oh, how is it? He pressed his hands against the counter and bowed his head. I messed up, okay? But it wasn't intentional. That sentence was its own confession. He knew it. I knew it. The kitchen knew it. I slid the tablet closer to him across the island. You asked for separate budgets. I'm honoring the request, and I want to show you something else. He looked suspicious, but took a step closer. I tapped another tab in the spreadsheet. A breakdown flashed on the screen. Financial contributions, down payment percentages, documented transfers from my inherited account. Cole stared as if the world's worst math teacher had just made him sit through a surprise exam. 80%, I said. My money, my inheritance, my grandmother's life savings. He didn't look up. And you told your parents I was freeloading. He opened his mouth. No words came out. I've been working for years, I continued. Quietly, late nights, weekends, freelance work that you called little side projects, every bill on time, every holiday hosted, every favor you asked for, every family obligation that became my job. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. I didn't mean it like that. Oh, Amen. Then how did you mean it? He didn't answer. My voice stayed so even, it almost surprised me. You talk about fairness. Fine. Let's talk about it. I pulled a folder from a drawer. Cole flinched like it might bite him. I opened it and spread neatly printed pages on the countertop. Here, I said. Projected monthly expenses, household split, market rate comparisons, everything you asked for when you said you wanted financial clarity. He stared at the papers like they were written in ancient Greek. This isn't a game, he said softly. No, I said. It's my life. He sank onto a stool, rubbing his eyes. I didn't think it would come to this. It came to this the moment you decided to turn our marriage into an audit. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, heavy, settling. He lifted his eyes slowly, desperation creeping in. Joanna, we can fix this. Gabbly. But the thing he didn't understand was simple. There wasn't a this left to fix. He'd carved it apart piece by piece, long before Sunday lunch. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt the shift inside me land fully, cleanly, like a door closing, without drama. You wanted separate, I said. I'm giving you separate. No anger, no shouting, just truth. The kitchen didn't feel like our kitchen anymore. It felt like mine. And everything that would come next already felt inevitable, shaped by the choices he made, and the ones I was finally ready to make myself. The chair underneath him squeaked as he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the financial breakdown like it might rearrange itself into something less humiliating if he blinked long enough. His silence filled the kitchen in a way his shouting never had. It was the silence of someone finally realizing he'd been arguing from the weaker side of the table for years without knowing it. I slid another page toward him, a copy of the wire transfer receipt from my inheritance into the escrow account the year we bought the house. The date sat there in bold type, staring at him with more honesty than he had ever given me. His eyes tracked the numbers slowly. Joanna, why didn't you tell me it was that much? I did, I said. You just heard what you wanted to hear. He shook his head like he could undo the last 30 seconds by rearranging the air around him. No, you didn't say. You said you helped with the down payment. I said I covered most of it. I corrected. You nodded, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're amazing," then walked right into the living room to watch basketball. That's all the attention you gave the biggest financial decision of our lives. He swallowed hard. I didn't think you meant Joe. 80%? That's reality, I said. His throat bobbed as he stared at the paperwork like it was a legal execution notice. Why would you put that much into a house with me? Because I thought we were a team. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Teams require 2 players, and he'd been playing on management's side with his parents since day one. The weight of the truth kept tightening around him until he looked like he might fold in half. I never wanted you to feel like this, he murmured. No, I replied. You just wanted to feel bigger than me. He lifted his head slowly. That's not true. You told your mother I lived off you. His shoulders sagged. His voice dropped. That was stupid. Yes, I said. It was. He rubbed his temples. Why are you throwing all this at me right now? Because you turned our marriage into paperwork, I said, tapping the invoice. And paperwork is something I'm very, very good at. Oh, he winced. A moment passed quiet, sharp, and oddly clarifying. Then I reached into the drawer beside the oven and pulled out the property folder, the one with the deed, the mortgage breakdown, and the ownership ratios clearly stated. When I laid it in front of him, he looked at it like it was radioactive. You didn't bring this out for your parents, he said quietly, as if just realizing it. No, I said, because I didn't need to prove anything to them. His eyes flicked to me. But you needed to prove something to me? No. I met his gaze evenly. I needed you to see the truth you've been pretending didn't exist. He opened the deed with trembling hands. The legal language didn't care about his feelings. It cared about numbers, signatures, contributions. It cared about facts. And every fact spelled out the same thing. The house belonged mostly to me. He stared at one section for a long time before whispering, You really put me on the deed even though almost all of it was your money? Yes. Why? Because I loved you. Because it never crossed my mind that you would use money as a weapon. His eyes closed. His chest rose and fell with a shaky breath. I messed everything up. You did, I agreed. Not just with finances. His eyes snapped open at that, full of fear he couldn't hide anymore. You think I cheated? One, I think you lied, I said. And that's worse in some ways. He wiped a hand across his face. It wasn't like that. I didn't sleep with her. I didn't say you did. Then what are you accusing me of? I let the words settle in the air before answering. You let another woman into a home I paid for. You let her feel comfortable enough to write her name on food in my fridge. You gave her access to a space that should have been ours. He stared at the counter, jaw tight, breathing uneven. That's intimacy, Cole, I said quietly. Even if nothing physical happened, you gave her pieces of your life that belonged to me, and then you blamed me for being too comfortable financially. He didn't defend himself this time. Maybe the truth hit too cleanly. Maybe he finally felt the scale tipping in the opposite direction after years of pretending he held all the weight. I watched him studying the deed like it might offer an escape clause. It didn't. Then I closed the folder gently, placing my hand on top of it. I want something clear, I said. I'm not fighting with you. I'm not trying to punish you. I'm not trying to scare you. He blinked, surprised. I'm correcting the record. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. So what happens now? Now? I said softly. Now we move with transparency, for real this time. His brow knit. What does that mean? It means we stop pretending everything is fine. It means we address what's broken, not hide it, not sugarcoat it, not bury it under your parents' approval. I paused, then added without softness, and not dismiss me with lines about me living off you. His expression cracked guilt, shame, fear, all scrambling for space. Before he could speak, I slid the invoice toward him again. You wanted clarity, I said. This is clarity. He swallowed. And if I don't pay it? Then you don't pay it, I said with a shrug. It's not about the money. It's about acknowledgement. His breath shuddered. You're different. No, I said. I'm just no longer quiet. The kitchen lights hummed softly above us. Nothing moved. Not the air, not the tension, not the truth. For the first time since we'd bought this house, Cole understood exactly where he stood inside it, and who it really belonged to. The moment the folder closed, I slipped my phone from my pocket and scrolled with the same calm I'd used to browse furniture. Cole watched me like the device in my hand might turn into another invoice. What are you doing now? He asked quietly. Finishing something, I replied. I tapped the call button and lifted the phone to my ear. Good afternoon, a cheerful voice answered. Westbury Terrace, how may I help you? Yes. I'd like to confirm a reservation for 3 under the name Patricia Hale, I said. Indoor seating, please. They'll be arriving shortly. The hostess confirmed with a bright tone. I thanked her, hung up, and placed the phone on the counter. Cole stared at me like I'd just spun the world off its axis. Did you seriously, Joanna? What was that? A solution, I said simply. To what? To lunch. He blinked. You booked my parents a table at one of the most expensive restaurants in Westbury? I did. Why? Because they came for a Sunday lunch that wasn't going to happen, I said. And unlike you, I don't leave people wondering where they stand. Man! His jaw shifted. That's manipulative. No, I said. It's practical and polite. His eyes tightened at the word, because polite was the one thing he had not been all week. Before he could respond, the front door opened. Howard stepped in first, calm as ever, followed closely by Patricia, who still looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. They both paused when they saw us standing by the island. Patricia sniffed sharply. So? Are you finished with your little dramatics? I smiled. Glad you're still hungry. She frowned. Excuse me? I made you a reservation, I said. Westbury Terrace, indoor booth. They're expecting you. Her eyes widened. You're joking. No, I said, and it's on me. A courtesy, since I didn't cook today. The mix of shock and disbelief on her face was almost cinematic. Her eyes darted to Cole like she expected him to intervene, demand an apology, reclaim control. Instead, he stayed frozen, like he didn't know which version of himself he was supposed to perform. Howard studied me for a moment calmly, without any hostility. Then he looked at his wife. That was thoughtful, he said. Patricia jerked her head in his direction. Thoughtful? She embarrassed us. I don't feel embarrassed, Howard replied. I feel hungry. No. The bluntness of it pulled a small breath of laughter out of me. Not loud, just the soft, involuntary kind that happens when someone says the exact thing you were secretly hoping they would. Patricia's mouth opened and closed in outrage. We are not going. Howard slipped his hands into his pockets. We are. She turned fully toward him. I said something to you in that car. And I heard you, he said. Doesn't change anything. No. It was rare to see anyone shut Patricia down without a struggle. Seeing her own husband do it so cleanly was like watching gravity flip. He looked at me again, meeting my eyes with a steady, level expression. It's a respectful gesture, he said. And I appreciate it. Patricia whipped toward Cole. Say something. Cole swallowed, then quietly said, Maybe you two should go. Patricia looked at him like he had betrayed her bloodline. What happened to you? She hissed. You used to listen to your mother. He didn't respond. He couldn't. The power dynamic in the room had shifted in a way he didn't know how to navigate. Howard gently touched Patricia's elbow. Let's go. I am not stepping foot in that restaurant, she snapped. Howard's voice stayed calm. Then you can stay here and argue by yourself. I'm going. It was the first time I'd ever seen Patricia truly stunned. Her posture deflated, not dramatically, not theatrically, just a slow sinking of certainty. She turned her eyes toward the floor for a second, then grabbed her purse from the table. As she marched toward the door, she muttered, This family has lost its mind. Howard followed behind her, but before stepping out, he paused. He turned to me and spoke with a tone, so level it almost startled me. You handled this better than most people would, he said. I handled it in the only way left, I replied. He nodded once. We'll talk another day. It wasn't a threat, or a promise, or a warning. It was assessment, a recognition of someone who had finally stopped tiptoeing. Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Cole and I were alone again. But the energy in the house wasn't the same as before. Not tense, not explosive, just honest. He sat back on the stool, exhaling in a long, tired gust. My father never talks to my mother like that. He didn't yell, I said. He took responsibility. That wasn't responsibility, Cole muttered. That was him choosing your side. There are no sides, I said. Only truth. He leaned both elbows on the counter and buried his face in his hands. I didn't expect today to go like this. I know, I said quietly, but eventually, everything lands where it belongs. He lifted his face slowly, eyes tired, jaw tight. You really think I'm that bad? He asked. I think, I answered, that you got comfortable standing on a pedestal someone else built for you, and once it cracked, you didn't know how to stand on your own. His throat moved, swallowing something heavy. "Do you want me to apologize?" he asked. "Would that fix anything?" "An apology doesn't fix what a pattern created," I said. He closed his eyes for a moment like he didn't want to see the next part of his life arriving in front of him. "So what do we do?" he whispered. "We keep telling the truth," I said. "And we stop pretending this marriage is something it isn't." The refrigerator hummed softly behind us. The light shifted across the kitchen floor. Outside, a car passed down the street. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. Just the calm, factual arrival of a reality we had both been avoiding. And in that quiet, the shape of what came next was starting to form. The house felt oddly quiet after his parents left, as if the walls themselves were adjusting to a new atmosphere. Cole stayed seated at the island, shoulders slumped, tracing the edge of his coffee mug like he was waiting for a verdict. I walked past him, grabbed my bag, and slipped my shoes on. No dramatic exit, no slammed doors, just a clean, calm decision. "I need some air," I said. He didn't ask where I was going. Maybe he already knew. Outside, the breeze felt cold in a way that sharpened my thoughts instead of numbing them. I got into my car, drove to the office district in Westbury, and parked in front of a small brick building with a blue awning, Harper and Lane Legal Services. I had already scheduled the appointment earlier in the week before the fridge scream, before the restaurant reservation, before everything erupted. Stepping into the office felt like stepping into a place where emotion had no authority. The air was cool, the lighting soft, and the receptionist greeted me with a warm professionalism that contrasted my shaking thoughts. "Hi, you must be Joanna," she said. "Attorney Quinn will see you in a moment." I nodded, absently rubbing my thumb over the strap of my bag. A few minutes later, a tall woman in a navy blazer walked toward me. Auburn hair twisted into a bun, expression both firm and sympathetic. "Joanna? I'm Lauren Quinn. Come on back." Laughed. Her office was tidy, no clutter, no piles of forgotten files. Everything was organized with the type of precision that made me trust her instantly. "Before we begin," she said, settling into her chair, "I want you to take a breath. You're not the first woman to sit in that seat, feeling a mix of anger, guilt, and relief." Relief. I hadn't realized that was part of the cocktail until she said it. She opened a notebook. "Tell me what's going on." I didn't rehearse anything. I didn't sugarcoat or dramatize. I just laid out the facts, the separate finances, the inheritance, the down payment I'd covered, the invoice, the food in the fridge, the screaming mother-in-law, the collapse in the kitchen. She listened without interrupting, only writing, nodding, occasionally raising an eyebrow when Cole's more absurd behavior came up. When I finished, she leaned back. "Okay," she said, "here's what we're working with. You're in an emotionally toxic marriage. Financially imbalanced. And legally, surprisingly favorable." Her tone wasn't cruel or triumphant, just factual. She tapped her pen lightly. "First question, do you want to stay married?" "No," I said. The answer came out cleaner and faster than I expected. "I want out." "Good," she said. "Honesty makes everything easier." She pulled a document forward. "Let's talk assets. The house. You said 80% of the down payment came from your inheritance?" "Yes." And is the transfer documented?" "Yes. I have the receipts, the wire transfer, and the escrow statement." "Perfect. That alone places you in a strong position. Legally, the court will recognize your contribution as separate property that you invested into the marital home." "Meaning?" "Meaning you're entitled to get it back." A knot loosened in my chest. She continued, "Your income contributed to the home upkeep, utilities, groceries, household necessities?" "Yes." Cole's salary covered the mortgage and his personal expenses. I covered everything else. She nodded. "Okay, it strengthens your case for reimbursement and division." But then her expression sharpened just a bit. "You mentioned the coworker, Sienna. Did you see anything beyond the food container?" "No, just the name. And his reaction. That's enough to flag potential marital misconduct. Even if there's no physical proof, emotional affairs still matter in some jurisdictions. In New York, it can influence negotiation leverage even if it doesn't directly affect division of assets." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. "So this isn't petty?" She met my eyes. What he did wasn't petty. Disrespect isn't petty. She paused. But you're not here to punish him. You're here to protect yourself. There's a difference. That distinction settled something inside me. She flipped open a folder. Here's what I recommend. Step 1. We gather every financial document, your transfers, your freelance invoices, the split expenses. Step 2. We draft a proposal outlining fair asset division. I nodded slowly. Do I have to warn him? No, she said. That's my job. Her tone held the softest edge, the kind that made me feel like I finally had someone standing beside me instead of across from me. Joanna, let me be clear, she continued. You are not walking into court as the weaker party. You're walking in as the majority financial contributor, and you have the receipts to prove it. I felt something unexpected rise in my chest, not pride, not anger. Recognition. This was my life, my money, my effort, my work, my stability, and I had forgotten that somewhere along the way, Lauren printed out a draft of our outline. Take these home, read through them, make notes. When you're ready, we'll finalize everything. I gathered the folder slowly. The weight of the documents felt like the weight of my new spine, solid, earned, deliberate. Before I left, she said, Joanna? One last thing. Don't accept any guilt he tries to hand back to you. People like your husband only rethink their choices when consequences arrive. Consequences. I walked out of the building with steady steps. The sun hit my face as I got into my car. My phone buzzed the moment the engine turned on a message from Cole. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, then placed the phone face down on the passenger seat. The drive home felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, just clearer, like the road had finally straightened out. And when I walked into the house, Cole was already waiting in the kitchen. He looked at the folder in my hand. His face paled instantly. You met with someone, he said quietly. I didn't flinch. I did. His breath caught. Is this really happening? It is. No drama, no yelling, no foreshadowing. Just truth, delivered cleanly, in the home where lies had been living rent-free. And for the first time in a very long time, the truth felt like mine again. I set the folder down on the counter, like it belonged there, and Cole stared at it, the way people stare at a ticking device in a movie, hoping it's fake, terrified it's real. His hands tightened around the back of the stool. Joanna, you went to a lawyer? His voice cracked in the middle, the way someone sounds when a consequence finally shows up on their doorstep. Yes, I said calmly. I met with an attorney. He swallowed hard, eyes darting between the folder and my face. So that's it? You're just leaving? No, I replied. I'm ending something that ended itself a long time ago. He sank into the stool slowly, like gravity had suddenly doubled. I didn't think you'd actually do this. May. That's the problem, I said. You never thought I would do anything. He looked down at his hands, then at the kitchen, the same kitchen where he told me I was living, too comfortably at his expense. The irony wasn't lost on him, or me. I messed up, he said quietly. But divorce? Isn't that extreme? Treating your wife like she's financially dependent when she funded your entire home is extreme, I replied. Letting another woman get comfortable enough in this house to leave her name in the fridge is extreme, and ignoring the resentment you created? That's what ended us. He drew a shaky breath. Just tell me what happens now. We sell the house, I said simply. We split the proceeds based on contributions. You take your share, I take mine. His head snapped up. Sell the house? Why? This is our home. My voice stayed even. It hasn't been our home for a long time. No. He pressed both palms to the counter as if holding onto it would stop the process. Joanna, you love this place. You designed every inch of it. I did, I said. And now I'm ready to design a life that isn't built on resentment. He stared at me, stunned into a silence that no argument could fill. 2 days later, we met with the realtor, a calm, seasoned man named Thompson, with silver hair and a voice that sounded like he'd seen every marital disaster under the sundae. He walked through the house with a clipboard, checking boxes, making notes, asking polite questions. Cole followed him around like a lost kid touring his childhood home. I stayed behind, with my arms folded loosely, letting the process unfold. After the walkthrough, Mr. Thompson looked at us with mild sympathy. "It's a seller's market," he said. "You'll get good offers quickly." Cole's face tightened, but he didn't object. "Are you two sure about selling?" the realtor asked gently. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Cole hesitated, then nodded once. "Yeah, we're sure." Thompson didn't pry. He'd seen enough couples in his career to know the answer had nothing to do with flooring and everything to do with exhaustion. He left us with a stack of documents and an appointment time for the photographer. When the door closed, Cole exhaled shakily. "This feels real now." "It is real." He leaned against the wall, rubbing his forehead. "You really want to go through with this?" "I do," I said. There was a long pause. He looked at the living room, the sofa we'd chosen together, the coffee table from the vintage shop, the curtains I'd hemmed myself. His eyes softened, almost weary. "I don't want to lose all of this." "You should have valued it when you had it," I said. He closed his eyes, nodding in small, painful acknowledgement. The house sold faster than either of us expected. 3 offers came in after the first weekend. The accepted one was well above asking a number that would help both of us start over, though for different reasons. On closing day, we sat across from each other in the realtor's office. He passed the papers, one by one. Cole signed first, then slid them to me. I signed next, steady hand, steady breath. Cole looked at me over the edge of the final document, his eyes tired but honest. "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked. He swallowed. "All of it. The money. The way I talked to you. My mother. The coworker. The last few years." I didn't respond right away. Not to punish him, just because the truth needed a quiet moment to settle. "I'm not angry anymore," I said finally. "Just done." He nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of those words. The last signature felt like the closing of a door that had been creaking for years. When the meeting ended, Cole stood up but didn't move toward the exit. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Somewhere that's mine," I said. "Really mine." He nodded, understanding more than he wanted to admit. We walked out of the building together, then naturally drifted toward opposite sides of the parking lot. No dramatic goodbye, no bitter words, no hugs. Just 2 people letting go of something they'd held wrong for too long. My new place was a loft in Westbury's small arts district, brick walls, tall windows, sunlight spilling across the floor. It felt like potential instead of pressure. On my first night there, I sat in the middle of the empty living room with takeout on the floor and looked around quietly. No labels on food. No expectations. No mother-in-law timing my cooking. No husband keeping score. Just space. My space. I opened my laptop, created a new file for my design studio, and typed the name, Mercer Creative Co. Seeing it typed out felt like breathing for the first time in months. I wasn't rebuilding. I was building for the first time. And as the city lights flickered outside my new windows, I realized the end of my marriage wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of a life that was finally mine without someone telling me what I owed, what I spent, or what comfort I had earned. For the first time, comfort didn't come from a house. It came from knowing I'd stepped into a future shaped by my own hands, my own work, and my own name. Clean, quiet, unapologetic. Exactly the way freedom should feel. The morning light spilled across my new loft in long, warm stripes, landing on boxes I hadn't unpacked yet, and the empty mug beside me on the windowsill. The city outside hummed softly, a calmer hum than my old life ever allowed. I leaned back against the exposed brick wall, legs stretched out on the hardwood floor, and let the quiet settle the way it always should have. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up tense. No footsteps from Cole stomping down the hallway. No calendar reminders about his parents' visits. No invisible checklist waiting for me in the kitchen. Just a clean space, clean air, and a clean slate. I rolled my shoulders, stood up, and walked across the loft to the drafting table I'd set up against the far wall. My tablet rested there, fully charged, untouched since the day I signed the divorce papers. Funny how the object he spent years mocking had survived our marriage better than we did. I turned it on. The screen blinked awake, and so did something in me. I opened a blank project file, drew the first clean stroke of a new logo set, and felt the strange thrill of doing work without someone watching, judging, or minimizing it. Mercer Creative Co. wasn't a dream anymore. It was happening quietly, confidently, on my own terms. A knock at the door broke my focus, not abruptly, just enough to make me look up. The building manager, James, stood outside with a friendly smile and a clipboard. "Morning, Joanna. Just need your signature to confirm the storage unit assignment downstairs." I opened the door and took the pen. "Thanks. Sorry it took me a bit to decide which size I needed." "No problem at all. New move-ins always take a minute." He paused, then added gently, "Place is looking great, by the way." I glanced behind me at the space sunlight catching the brushed metal frames I'd hung, the rug I'd splurged on, the piles of creative books by the sofa. It really was starting to look like mine. "Thank you," I said. "It feels good." He nodded, tipped his head, and walked off. I closed the door and let the peaceful quiet settle again. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text. "Cole, I hope you're okay. I won't bother you again. I just wanted to say I really am sorry. For everything." I stared at the message for a moment. Not with anger, not even with sadness, just recognition. Recognition of a man who finally saw the damage he'd created only after the structure had already collapsed. I typed a short reply. "I wish you well. Nothing cruel, nothing warm, just closure." I put the phone down and took a deep breath in the center of my loft. The air tasted different, lighter, cleaner, like the absence of judgment had oxygen in it. Later that afternoon, I pulled my hair into a loose bun and walked down to a cafe on the corner. The place had tall windows, mismatched chairs, and the kind of atmosphere where creatives hid out with laptops. I ordered an iced Americano and found a seat by the window. As I opened my tablet again and began sketching a new campaign layout for a client, my mind drifted not backward to the old house, but sideways, to the version of myself that had lived there. The version who apologized for taking up space. The version who adapted to everyone else's expectations until she couldn't recognize her own. I didn't resent her. I just didn't relate to her anymore. Halfway through my second sketch, a woman at the next table leaned over with a polite smile. "Excuse me, sorry if this is weird, but I've seen your work online. You're Joanna Mercer, right?" I blinked, surprised. "Yes." She laughed softly. "I run a boutique in Garden City. We're rebranding this fall. I've been trying to find your contact info for 2 weeks." The universe apparently had excellent timing. I handed her one of my new business cards. "I'd love to work with you." Her face lit up. "Perfect. I'll email you this week." As she walked away, I sat there for a moment, just absorbing the moment. Opportunity used to feel like something I had to fight for permission to pursue. Now it walked right up to my coffee table. When I headed back to the loft later that evening, I pushed open the door and stopped just inside. The city lights bounced off the wide windows, throwing soft patterns across the floor. I kicked off my shoes, set my keys in the little tray by the door, and smiled without thinking. This wasn't the ending of a marriage. It was the beginning of myself. I put on a playlist, let soft jazz float through the room, and began arranging books on the shelves I'd built last night. Each book found its place without chaos, without someone telling me I was arranging them wrong, without judgment hovering behind me. By the time I finished, the loft looked lived in. Warm, balanced. Mine. I sat on the sofa, pulled a blanket over my legs, and looked around one last time before the night settled in fully. Everything felt aligned. Everything felt intentional. Everything felt earned. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a neon sign or a victory parade. Freedom was this. A mug on a windowsill, a quiet room, a clean table, a business file open with my name on it, and the unmistakable sense that I'd finally stepped into a life that matched the weight of my worth. I didn't need applause. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure from anyone but myself. What I needed, what I finally claimed, was peace. And peace, once you taste it, is something no marriage certificate, no controlling husband, and no screaming mother-in-law can ever take away. My life belonged to me now. Fully, legally, emotionally. The house was sold, the past was filed away, and the future wasn't something I feared anymore. It was something I was building carefully, deliberately, beautifully, with my own hands. And I wasn't going back. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you enjoy true-to-life, cheating stories, revenge stories, and tales of husband betrayal where women rise stronger, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. And before you go, drop a comment, tell me your thoughts, or share your own experience if you feel comfortable. Your voice matters here.